Before we dive into tonight's story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And when we reach the end, don't forget to rate this tale from 0 to 10. Now settle in and enjoy. The bass thumped through the walls of the penthouse suite, vibrating through the soles of Madison Cole's burgundy stilettos as she stepped out of the elevator on the 42nd floor. Her hand smoothed down the front of her black cocktail dress, the fabric clinging to her curves in a way that made her feel both confident and exposed. She tugged at the hem, wishing it covered just an inch more of her thigh, but the boutique assistant had insisted this was perfect for a high society event. Madison wasn't so sure. She clutched her silver clutch tighter, the invitation card inside feeling heavier than it should. Her best friend Sienna had begged her to attend this charity mixer, promising it would be good for networking. As a junior marketing consultant trying to build her client list, Madison knew she needed connections. But standing outside the massive double doors with muffled laughter and clinking glasses echoing from within, she felt wildly out of place. "Just smile and pretend you belong," she whispered to herself, then pushed through the doors. The suite exploded into view. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering Manhattan skyline, while inside, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over clusters of elegantly dressed guests. Women in designer gowns and men in tailored suits moved like chess pieces across marble floors. Waiters glided between them carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than Madison's monthly rent. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and took a nervous sip, scanning the crowd for Sienna's familiar face. Nowhere. Typical. Her friend was probably already charming some executive in a corner somewhere. Madison drifted toward the windows, hoping to blend into the background while she got her bearings. "You look lost." The voice came from her right, smooth and deep, with an edge of amusement. Madison turned to find a man watching her with dark, assessing eyes. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders, filling out a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than her car. His hair was dark and perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, but it was his eyes that held her, intense and probing, like he could see straight through her practiced smile. "I'm just taking in the view," Madison replied, gesturing toward the windows with her champagne glass. She kept her voice light, casual, refusing to let him see how her pulse had quickened. The city's prettier from up here than from street level. He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving her face. "You're new to these events. It's not a question. More like a statement of fact." Madison bristled slightly. "Is it that obvious?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Let's just say I know most of the people here, and you're far more interesting than any of them." There was something in his tone, something that made heat crawl up Madison's neck. She took another sip of champagne to hide her reaction. Interesting is one word for it. Out of place might be more accurate. His eyes glinted. "I don't think you're out of place at all." In fact, he leaned in slightly, his voice dropping lower. "You might be exactly what I need tonight." Madison's breath caught. The way he said it, the intensity in his gaze, sent her thoughts spinning in a direction she definitely shouldn't go. Before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "There you are, darling." A stunning blonde in a silver gown materialized beside them, her smile sharp as she looped her arm through the man's. "I've been looking everywhere for you. The investors are waiting." The man's expression shifted, coolness replacing whatever warmth had been there moments before. He glanced at the blonde, then back at Madison, and for just a second she thought she saw regret flicker across his face. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Business calls." Madison watched him walk away, the blonde clinging to his arm, and exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What the hell was that? She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart hammering beneath her palm. The rest of the evening blurred together. Madison made small talk with a few people Sienna eventually introduced her to, but her mind kept wandering back to the man by the window. She didn't even know his name. By 11, exhausted and feeling like she'd smiled enough to last a month, Madison slipped out of the main room and down a hallway in search of a bathroom. The corridor was quieter, dimly lit, doors lining both sides. She tried one handle, locked. Tried another, also locked. The third door opened into what looked like a private lounge, leather sofas, a bar in the corner, and blessedly empty. Madison stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a sigh of relief. She kicked off her heels and sank onto one of the sofas, letting her head fall back. Just 5 minutes of peace. That's all she needed. The door opened. Madison's eyes flew open to find him standing there, the man from earlier. He froze when he saw her, surprise crossing his features before his expression smoothed into something unreadable. "Sorry," he said, his hand still on the doorknob. "I didn't realize anyone was in here." Madison sat up quickly, suddenly aware of how intimate this felt, alone in a dimly lit room. "It's fine. I was just taking a break from all the networking." He stepped inside and closed the door, which should have made Madison nervous, but somehow didn't. Instead, curiosity sparked through her. "Networking," he repeated, moving toward the bar. "Is that what they're calling it now?" There was an edge to his voice, something bitter beneath the smooth surface. Madison watched as he poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. No ice. "Rough night?" she ventured. "You could say that." He took a drink, then turned to face her fully. "My board of directors thinks I need to settle down. Apparently, being single at 32 makes me unreliable in their eyes." Madison raised an eyebrow. "Sounds medieval." "Welcome to corporate America." He studied her for a long moment, then set his glass down and walked closer. That confidence she'd seen earlier was back, mixed with something else. Something that made her pulse race. "What's your name?" "Madison," she answered. "Madison Cole?" He extended his hand. "Ethan. Ethan Kingsley." The name hit her like cold water. Ethan Kingsley, CEO of Kingsley Enterprises, one of the largest tech companies in the country. She'd seen his face on Forbes covers, read articles about his ruthless business tactics, and she'd just been sitting here barefoot on his private lounge sofa. Her hand moved automatically to shake his, and the moment their palms touched, electricity shot up her arm. His grip was firm, warm, and he held on just a second longer than necessary. "I should probably go," Madison said, though she made no move to stand. "Probably," Ethan agreed, but he didn't step back either. The air between them thickened, charged with something Madison couldn't name but felt in every nerve. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, and she knew with absolute certainty that if she didn't leave right now, something was going to happen. Something she might regret. Or might not. Before she could decide, Ethan spoke again, his voice rough. "The board wants me to appear more stable, more settled. They want to see me with someone at the company gala next week." Madison blinked, confused by the sudden shift. "Okay? What if that someone was you?" The question hung in the air between them. Madison stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but his expression remained serious. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" His lips curved into a small smile. "I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement. You'd get access to some of the most influential people in the city. I'd get my board off my back, and we'd both get to spend time with someone who doesn't bore us to tears." Madison should have said no, should have grabbed her shoes and walked out. But something in his eyes, that intensity mixed with what looked like genuine interest, made her hesitate. "This is insane," she breathed. "Completely," he agreed. So is that a yes? Madison looked at him. This powerful, magnetic man who'd somehow appeared in her life like something out of a dream. Against every ounce of common sense she possessed, she found herself nodding. 1 week. Just for the gala. 1 week, Ethan repeated. But the way he looked at her suggested he already knew it wouldn't end there. The next morning, Madison woke to sunlight streaming through her apartment window and the immediate certainty that she'd made a terrible decision. She groaned and pulled the pillow over her face, replaying last night's conversation with Ethan Kingsley. What had she been thinking? She hadn't been thinking. That was the problem. She'd been reacting to the way he looked at her, the way his voice sent shivers down her spine, the way the entire room seemed to shrink when he stepped closer. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Madison reached for it blindly and squinted at the screen. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her open the message. "This is Ethan. Dinner tonight at 7. I'll send a car. Dress formally. We need to discuss the details." Madison sat up, her heart doing an uncomfortable flip. He'd gotten her number. How had he gotten her number? Then she remembered giving it to Sienna's contact at the party for networking purposes. Of course. She stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to text back and call the whole thing off. The other part, the part that had kept her awake until 3 in the morning, thinking about the way Ethan's eyes had darkened when he looked at her, that part wanted to see him again. Before she could overthink it, she typed a response. "Fine. But I'm picking the restaurant." His reply came within seconds. "Deal. Send me the address." Madison chose a mid-range Italian place in her neighborhood, somewhere she felt comfortable, somewhere that wouldn't make her feel like she was drowning in his world. If she was going to do this, she needed some control over the situation. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She tried to work on a client presentation, but her mind kept wandering. Finally, at 5, she gave up and started getting ready. She chose a simple navy dress, elegant but not over the top, paired with nude heels and minimal jewelry. When she studied herself in the mirror, she looked professional, put together, like someone who belonged on the arm of a CEO. The lie sat bitter on her tongue. At 6:45, her phone buzzed. Cars downstairs. Madison grabbed her purse and headed down to find a sleek, black town car waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door for her with a polite nod, and she slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. The restaurant was only 10 minutes away, but those 10 minutes felt like an eternity. Her palms were sweating. She wiped them on her dress, then immediately regretted it. When the car pulled up, she saw Ethan already waiting outside, leaning against the brick wall with his hands in his pockets. He'd traded the formal suit for dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The casual look somehow made him even more devastating. He straightened when he saw her, his gaze traveling from her face down to her shoes and back up in a way that made her skin heat. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Madison's planned sarcastic response died in her throat. "Thank you. You clean up well yourself." His mouth quirked. "Shall we?" Inside, the hostess led them to a corner booth, private and dimly lit. Wine bottles lined the walls, and the scent of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. Madison relaxed slightly. This she could handle. So, Ethan began once they'd ordered. "Tell me about yourself." Madison raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't you have done research before propositioning me for this arrangement?" "I did," he admitted, taking a sip of the wine the waiter had just poured. Madison Cole, 26, graduated from NYU with a degree in marketing. You've been working as an independent consultant for 2 years, building a decent client list, but nothing major yet. You live in a studio apartment in Brooklyn, drive a 10-year-old Honda, and your best friend is Sienna Torres, who works in event planning. Madison's jaw tightened. That's creepy, That's thorough. Ethan's expression didn't change. I don't enter into agreements blind. Fair enough. Madison leaned back, crossing her arms. Then you should know I'm not some starry-eyed girl who's going to fall at your feet because you're rich and powerful. Good. That's exactly why I chose you. Something in his tone made her pause. Why did you choose me? There were dozens of women at that party last night. Ethan was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing the stem of his wine glass. Because when I talked to you, you didn't simper or flatter or try to impress me. You looked at me like I was just a man. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Madison felt something soften in her chest, but she pushed it away. She couldn't afford to get emotional about this. This was business. So what exactly do you need from me? She asked, forcing her voice to stay steady. Simple. Accompany me to the company gala next week. Smile, make conversation, act like we're together. My board will see I'm capable of maintaining a relationship, and hopefully they'll back off. And after the gala? Ethan met her eyes. That depends. On what? On whether we both want to walk away. The weight of his words settled over the table. Madison took a long drink of wine, needing the courage. What do I get out of this? Access, Ethan said immediately. I'll introduce you to potential clients, people who can transform your business. I'll also pay you for your time. Madison bristled. I'm not an escort. I didn't say you were. But your time is valuable, and I'm asking you to dedicate it to me. Consider it a consulting fee. She wanted to argue, but the practical part of her brain was already calculating. The connections alone could be worth thousands in future contracts. And if he was paying her on top of that. This is still insane, she muttered. Completely, he agreed again, echoing his words from last night. But something tells me you're not afraid of a little insanity. Madison looked at him across the table, this man who somehow seemed to see straight through all her defenses, and made her decision. Fine. 1 week. But we set ground rules. Ethan's smile was slow, dangerous. Name them. 1. This is business only. No lines get crossed. His eyes glinted with something that might have been challenge. Agreed. 2. I can walk away at any time if I'm uncomfortable. He nodded. Fair. And 3. Madison held his gaze. You don't lie to me. About anything. Ethan's expression grew serious. That goes both ways, Madison. If we're doing this, we do it honestly. Deal. She extended her hand across the table. He took it, his palm warm against hers, and shook once, firmly. Deal. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Madison found herself relaxing, laughing at his dry observations about corporate politics, sharing stories about her most difficult clients. Ethan was different when he wasn't in CEO mode. Still intense, still commanding. But there was a warmth beneath the ice that drew her in despite her better judgment. By the time dessert arrived, Madison had almost forgotten this was supposed to be a business arrangement. Almost. When the check came, Ethan grabbed it before she could react. I've got it, she protested. Madison, I'm a billionaire. Let me buy you dinner. She sat back, conceding the point. Fine. But next time I'm paying. Next time, he repeated, his mouth curving. So there's going to be a next time? We have a week, she reminded him. We need to look convincing. That requires practice. His eyes darkened. Practice. I like the sound of that. Madison's pulse jumped. She stood quickly, needing distance before she did something stupid, like lean across the table and kiss him. We should go. It's getting late. Ethan rose smoothly, leaving cash on the table. Outside, the car was already waiting. He opened the door for her, a gesture so old-fashioned it made her heart skip. Thank you for tonight, he said quietly. I know this is unconventional, That's one word for it. Madison smiled despite herself, but it was nice. Actually nice. Good. He was standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. I'll text you tomorrow with details about the gala. Okay. She should get in the car, should say goodnight and leave. But his eyes held her in place, and for a moment the rest of the world faded away. Good night, Madison. Good night, Ethan. She forced herself to slide into the car, and as it pulled away from the curb, she looked back to see him still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching her go. This was definitely going to be more complicated than she'd anticipated. Over the next 3 days, Madison's life transformed in ways she never expected. It started with packages arriving at her door, designer dresses, shoes that probably cost more than her monthly groceries, jewelry that made her afraid to touch it. Each delivery came with a note in Ethan's precise handwriting. For the gala, choose whatever makes you comfortable. She wanted to send it all back on principle, but Sienna, who'd shown up unannounced and discovered the treasure trove, practically sat on her to prevent it. Are you insane? Sienna held up a midnight blue gown that shimmered like starlight. Do you know how much this costs? That's exactly why I can't accept it, Madison argued. It's too much. Honey, you agreed to be the fake girlfriend of a billionaire. This is part of the job. Stop overthinking and embrace it. Madison bit her lip, running her fingers over the silk fabric. It was beautiful. She couldn't deny that. And the thought of wearing it, of Ethan seeing her in it, sent an inappropriate thrill through her stomach. Fine, she conceded. But I'm only keeping what I actually wear. Sienna rolled her eyes but didn't argue further. That evening, Madison's phone lit up with a video call from an unknown number. She answered cautiously, and Ethan's face filled the screen. He was in what looked like an office, his tie loosened, hair slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. Hi, she said, surprised by how happy she felt seeing him. Is this a business call or personal? Can't it be both? His voice was warm through the speaker. I wanted to see if the clothes arrived. They did. All 100 pounds of them. His mouth quirked. I might have gone overboard. Might have, Madison laughed. Ethan, there's enough here to outfit an entire boutique. I wanted you to have options. And I wanted, he paused, his expression shifting to something more vulnerable. I wanted you to feel beautiful. Madison's breath caught. The casual way he said it, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made her chest tighten. She started, then had to clear her throat. Thank you. That's very thoughtful. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily from work to family to dreams. Madison learned that Ethan had built his company from nothing, that his parents had died when he was 23, leaving him alone, except for a younger sister he was putting through medical school. She told him about her own family, about growing up middle class in Ohio, about moving to New York with nothing but ambition and a maxed-out credit card. When they finally hung up, Madison sat staring at her phone, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was supposed to be business. Just business. But the way he looked at her through the screen, the way he listened when she talked, that was something else entirely. The night of the gala arrived faster than Madison expected. She spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses before settling on the midnight blue one Sienna had loved. It hugged her curves perfectly, the neckline dipping just low enough to be interesting without being scandalous. She paired it with silver heels and simple diamond earrings, keeping her hair in loose waves down her back. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The car arrived at 7 sharp. Madison grabbed her clutch and headed downstairs, her nerves singing with anticipation. But when she stepped outside, it wasn't the driver waiting. It was Ethan. He leaned against the car in a perfect black tuxedo, his bow tie undone and hanging around his neck. When he saw her, he went completely still. Madison walked toward him slowly, watching his eyes darken as she got closer. The look on his face made her feel powerful and nervous all at once. "You're staring," she said softly when she reached him. "I know." His voice was rough. "Madison, he seemed to struggle for words. "Absolutely stunning." Heat flooded her cheeks. "You look pretty good yourself." "Let me." Ethan reached for his bow tie, and Madison found herself stepping closer, her hands rising to tie it for him. It was an intimate gesture, her fingers working at his collar, while he stood perfectly still, his eyes never leaving her face. "There," she whispered, smoothing the fabric. "Perfect." Not quite. Before she could ask what he meant, he produced a small black box from his pocket. "This is on loan from my personal collection, but I want you to wear it tonight." He opened the box to reveal a sapphire pendant on a delicate platinum chain, the stone the exact color of her dress. It was easily the most beautiful piece of jewelry Madison had ever seen. "Ethan, I can't." "Yes, you can." He lifted the necklace carefully, and Madison turned, lifting her hair so he could clasp it around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin, sending shivers down her spine. She let her hair fall and turned back to face him. His gaze dropped to the sapphire resting against her collarbone, then back up to meet her eyes. "Now you're perfect." Madison's mouth went dry. The intensity in his expression made it very clear this wasn't just business anymore. Maybe it never had been. "We should go," she managed. "Don't want to be late." Ethan nodded, but didn't move. He just kept looking at her like she was something precious, something worth more than all his wealth combined. Finally, he opened the car door. "After you." The drive to the venue was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Ethan's hand rested on the seat between them, close enough that Madison could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Several times their fingers almost touched, and each near miss sent electricity sparking through her. The gala was being held at the plaza, because of course it was. As they pulled up, Madison saw the red carpet, the photographers, the crowd of elegantly dressed people streaming inside. Her stomach clenched. "Ready?" Ethan asked, sensing her nervousness. "No," she admitted. "But let's do this anyway." His hand found hers, warm and solid, anchoring her. Together. He squeezed once. "They'll love you, I promise." They stepped out of the car into a storm of camera flashes. Madison plastered on a smile, trying not to flinch at the shouted questions. "Mr. Kingsley, who's your date? Is this your girlfriend? How long have you been together?" Ethan ignored them all, keeping Madison close as they walked the carpet. At the entrance, he leaned down to whisper in her ear. "You're doing great. Just breathe." Inside was even more overwhelming. A massive ballroom glittered with chandeliers, round tables draped in white linen, and a live orchestra playing soft classical music. Everyone was beautiful, dripping in diamonds and designer labels. Madison felt like she'd stepped into another world. And then Ethan's hand was on her lower back, steady and reassuring, and somehow it didn't seem so scary anymore. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "I'll handle the introductions." For the next hour, Madison met more wealthy, powerful people than she'd encountered in her entire life. CEOs, investors, politicians, even a few celebrities. Ethan introduced her as his girlfriend each time, the word rolling off his tongue so naturally that she almost believed it herself. She played her part perfectly, smiling, making polite conversation, laughing at mediocre jokes. But through it all, she was intensely aware of Ethan beside her. The way his thumb stroked small circles on her back when he thought no one was looking. The way his eyes kept finding hers across conversations, checking that she was okay. the way he'd lean down occasionally to whisper commentary in her ear that made her bite back laughter. "You're a natural at this," he said during a brief moment alone, waiting for drinks at the bar. "I feel like a fraud," Madison confessed. "Like everyone can see, I don't belong here." Ethan turned to face her fully, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Hey, listen to me. You belong anywhere you choose to be. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise." Madison's heart squeezed. How was she supposed to keep this professional when he said things like that? When he touched her like she mattered? Before she could respond, a cold voice cut through the moment. Well, Ethan Kingsley with a date. I never thought I'd see the day." They both turned to find a tall, impeccably dressed man watching them with calculating eyes. "James." Ethan's tone cooled noticeably. "Madison, this is James Hartford, chairman of my board." "Mr. Hartford." Madison extended her hand with a polite smile. "Nice to meet you." Hartford shook her hand, his gaze sharp as it assessed her. "The pleasure's mine, Miss Cole." Madison Cole. "And what do you do, Miss Cole?" "I'm a marketing consultant." "How interesting." The way he said it made it clear he found it anything but interesting. "And how did you and Ethan meet?" Madison felt Ethan tense beside her. Before he could intervene, she answered smoothly. "At a charity event. I was trying to avoid a boring conversation, and he rescued me." Hartford's eyebrows rose. "How gallant. I do hope you'll be seeing more of each other. Ethan's been far too focused on work lately." "That's the plan," Ethan said firmly, his arms sliding around Madison's waist. "Now, if you'll excuse us, I promised Madison a dance." He led her away before Hartford could respond, guiding her toward the dance floor, where other couples were already swaying to the music. "That was terrifying," Madison breathed once they were out of earshot. "You handled him perfectly." Ethan pulled her into his arms, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. Hartford's a shark. If he'd smelled weakness, he would have attacked. Madison tried to focus on the conversation, but it was nearly impossible with Ethan's body pressed against hers, moving in perfect rhythm to the music. He was an excellent dancer, leading her effortlessly across the floor. "I didn't know you could dance," she said, needing to break the tension. "There's a lot you don't know about me." His voice was low, intimate. "Maybe we should fix that." The song shifted to something slower, and Ethan pulled her closer. Madison's hand moved from his shoulder to the back of his neck, her fingers brushing his hair. His eyes darkened at the touch. "This is still pretend, right?" she whispered, though her body was betraying her, melting against his. "Is it?" Ethan's gaze dropped to her lips, "because it doesn't feel like pretending to me." Madison's heart hammered. They were in the middle of a crowded ballroom, surrounded by his colleagues and board members, but in that moment it felt like they were completely alone. She should pull away, should remind him about the ground rules. But instead, she found herself rising on her toes, closing the distance between them. Their lips met softly, tentatively. Then Ethan's hand tightened on her waist, pulling her flush against him, and the kiss deepened into something that definitely wasn't pretend. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Madison knew with absolute certainty that she was in trouble. Whatever this was between them, it had stopped being business the moment he put his hand in hers. The kiss changed everything, though neither of them acknowledged it aloud. They stayed at the gala until midnight, playing their roles perfectly. To anyone watching, they were the perfect couple, attentive, affectionate, completely absorbed in each other. And Madison was terrified by how little of it felt like acting. When Ethan's hand rested on her lower back, she leaned into the touch. When he whispered jokes in her ear during boring speeches, her laughter was genuine. When they danced again, slower this time, her head rested against his chest like it belonged there. By the time they left, Madison's feet ached, and her face hurt from smiling, but she felt strangely exhilarated. In the car, Ethan loosened his bow tie and rolled his neck, exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. "You were incredible tonight," he said quietly. "I got at least 5 comments about how lucky I am." Madison kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. "They're not wrong. I'm pretty amazing." His laughter was warm, genuine. "Yes, you are." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights streaming past the windows. Madison found herself studying Ethan's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his lashes cast shadows on his cheeks. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "With us?" Ethan turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "What do you want to happen?" Madison's breath caught. That was the question, wasn't it? The smart answer was to walk away. They'd fulfilled their bargain. The board had seen them together. She'd gotten a dozen potential client contacts. They could end this cleanly. But the thought of not seeing him again made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with business. "I don't know," she admitted. "This was supposed to be simple. It's not anymore, is it?" "No." Ethan reached across the seat and took her hand, threading their fingers together. "It's not." The car pulled up outside Madison's building. She should go, should say goodnight, and let this end before it got more complicated. But Ethan was looking at her with those dark eyes, and her resolve crumbled. "Do you want to come up?" she heard herself ask. "For coffee or something?" "Something," Ethan repeated, his mouth curving. "I'd like that." Her apartment felt impossibly small with him in it. Madison busied herself making coffee while Ethan explored her space, studying the photos on her bookshelf, the stack of marketing textbooks, the half-dead succulent on the windowsill. "You have a nice place," he said, though they both knew it was a lie. Compared to what he was used to, her studio was a shoebox. "It's home," Madison replied, handing him a mug. "It's not much, but it's mine." Ethan set the mug down untouched and turned to face her fully. "Madison, I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. "What?" "Tonight wasn't about the board. I mean, yes, they saw us together, but that's not why I wanted you there." "Then why?" "Because I wanted to be with you." His voice was steady, certain. "Because for the first time in years, I met someone who sees me, not my bank account or my company or my reputation. Just me." Madison's throat tightened. "Ethan, I feel the same way," she whispered. "But I'm scared. This happened so fast. I know we barely know each other, and this could blow up spectacularly, but I can't stop thinking about you." The confession hung between them, honest and raw. "So what do we do?" Madison asked. "We figure it out," Ethan said simply. "No more pretending. No more business arrangements. Just us, seeing where this goes." Madison searched his face, looking for any sign of doubt. She found none. "Okay," she breathed. "Just us." Ethan's smile was slow, devastating. He cupped her face in both hands and kissed her, soft and deep, and full of promise. Madison melted into it, her arms wrapping around his neck, pulling him closer. This kiss was different from the one at the gala. No audience, no performance. Just 2 people finally admitting what they'd been fighting since the moment they met. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," Madison whispered. "Not for, just stay. I don't want you to leave." "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. And for the first time in years, Madison felt like she was exactly where she belonged. They ended up on her small couch, Madison tucked against Ethan's side, his arm around her shoulders. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. He told her about the pressure of running a company, about the loneliness of being at the top. She shared her fears about her business, about disappointing her parents, who'd sacrificed so much for her education. As dawn started to lighten the sky outside her window, Madison felt herself drifting off, safe and warm in Ethan's arms. The last thing she heard before sleep claimed her was his voice, soft and certain. "I'm keeping you, Madison Cole. Whatever this is, I'm not letting you go." She smiled against his chest, too tired to respond, but feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. This was real. Terrifying and unexpected and completely real. When Madison woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows and she was alone. Panic flared for a moment before she saw the note on her coffee table, written in Ethan's precise handwriting. Had to go deal with some work emergencies. "Dinner tonight. I'll pick you up at 7. Last night meant everything." E. Madison clutched the note, a ridiculous smile spreading across her face. She felt like a teenager with her first crush, giddy and nervous and completely out of control. Her phone buzzed. Multiple texts from Sienna, all in caps. "Oh my God, I saw the photos from the gala. You guys looked amazing. When were you going to tell me this was real?" Madison laughed and typed back, "It's complicated. Coffee later?" Within seconds, Sienna replied, "You better believe it. I want details." The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Madison tried to work but kept getting distracted, replaying moments from last night. The way Ethan had looked at her across the dance floor, the taste of his kiss, the feeling of falling asleep in his arms. By the time she met Sienna for coffee, she was practically vibrating with pent-up energy. Sienna took one look at her and groaned. "Oh God, you're in love with him." "I am not," Madison protested, but her flaming cheeks gave her away. "Okay, maybe I'm in serious-like. Very serious-like." Sienna squealed and grabbed her hands. "Madison, this is amazing. Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position?" "I know," Madison bit her lip. "That's what scares me. What if I'm just another novelty? What if he gets bored?" "From what I saw in those photos," Sienna said seriously, "that man looks at you like you hung the moon. Whatever this is, it's not casual for him either." Madison wanted to believe that. God, she wanted to believe it so badly. That evening, Ethan arrived exactly at 7, dressed casually in jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even more intense. He kissed her hello, soft and sweet, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Where are we going?" Madison asked as they headed down to the car. "Somewhere private," Ethan replied. "I want you all to myself tonight." He took her to his penthouse, and Madison tried not to gape at the sprawling luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, an open kitchen that probably cost more than her yearly salary. But what caught her attention was the dining table, set for 2, candles flickering, the scent of home-cooked food filling the air. "You cooked?" she asked, surprised. "Don't sound so shocked." Ethan pulled out her chair. "I'm actually a decent chef when I have time." The meal was delicious. Pasta with homemade sauce, fresh bread, a crisp white wine. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing as easily as it had the night before. But beneath it all, Madison felt tension building, an awareness of being alone with him in his space, of all the possibilities that implied. After dinner, Ethan led her to the massive windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, Manhattan glittering like scattered diamonds below them. "This is my favorite spot," he said quietly, standing behind her, his arms coming around her waist. "When everything gets too overwhelming, I come here and remember how small I am in all of this." Madison leaned back against his chest. "It's beautiful. Not as beautiful as you." The words were simple, but the way he said them, low and rough against her ear, made her shiver. She turned in his arms to face him, and the look in his eyes stole her breath. "I meant what I said last night," Ethan continued. "I'm keeping you, if you'll let me." Madison rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Ethan responded immediately, his hands tangling in her hair, deepening the kiss until they were both breathless. They stumbled toward his bedroom, shedding clothes along the way, hands exploring, hearts racing. Madison had never felt so wanted, so cherished. Ethan touched her like she was precious, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Afterwards, wrapped in his sheets with his arm around her, Madison felt tears prick her eyes. She'd come to New York looking for success. She'd never expected to find this connection that felt like coming home. "Hey," Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You okay?" Madison nodded, not trusting her voice. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Sleep. I've got you." And surrounded by his warmth, his scent, the steady beat of his heart, Madison finally let herself believe it. She was safe, she was wanted, she was falling in love. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and growing closeness. Madison officially ended their business arrangement, and what replaced it was something infinitely more complicated and infinitely more real. Ethan integrated seamlessly into her life. He showed up at her apartment with takeout after long work days. He sat through her client presentations, offering feedback and encouragement. He met her friends, charming them effortlessly, while keeping his hand firmly in hers. But he also introduced her to his world, private dinners with business partners who could transform her company, gallery openings where she rubbed elbows with the city's elite, quiet Sundays at his penthouse where they cooked breakfast together, and argued over the crossword puzzle. Madison felt herself falling deeper with each passing day. The way he remembered her coffee order, the way he'd text her random thoughts throughout the day just to make her smile, the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world who mattered. But there were complications, too. The press had gotten wind of their relationship, and suddenly, Madison found herself dodging photographers and reading speculative articles about Kingsley's mystery woman. Some of the coverage was kind, some was viciously critical, questioning what a nobody consultant was doing with one of the city's most eligible bachelors. "Look at this one," Madison said one evening, shoving her phone toward Ethan. "They're calling me a gold digger." Ethan barely glanced at the screen before setting it aside. "I don't care what they say." "Do you?" "Yes." Madison pulled away, frustrated. "These people are tearing apart my reputation. My clients are asking questions. Some are wondering if I'm reliable or just distracted by my rich boyfriend. Then we'll prove them wrong." Ethan's voice was calm, steady. "Let your work speak for itself. It always has." He was right, logically. But emotionally, Madison felt like she was drowning under the weight of scrutiny. She'd worked so hard to build her business from nothing. Now people were reducing her to an accessory on Ethan's arm. The tension came to a head on a Friday night. They'd planned a quiet dinner, but Ethan had been stuck in back-to-back meetings, arriving 2 hours late. Madison had spent those 2 hours stewing, her insecurities multiplying. "I'm sorry," Ethan said as soon as he walked in, his expression exhausted. The board meeting ran long. They always do. Madison stood from the couch, arms crossed. "Do you know what I did while I waited? I read 15 different articles speculating about us. Half think I'm using you for money. The other half think you're slumming it for some PR stunt. That's not true, and you know it." "Do I?" Madison's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "Because from where I'm standing, our worlds are so different, I don't know how this is supposed to work." "What are you saying?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm saying maybe everyone's right. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe I don't belong in your world, and you don't belong in mine." The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. For a long moment, Ethan just stared at her. Then he stepped forward, closing the distance. Listen to me carefully, he said, his voice low and intense. I don't give a damn what the press says. I don't care about our different tax brackets or social circles. The only thing that matters is how I feel about you. And how do you feel? Madison whispered, her anger crumbling into something more vulnerable. Like I've been waiting my entire life to find you. Like every decision I've made led me to that party where you were standing alone by the window. Like I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me because I've never let anyone this close before. Madison's breath caught. Ethan, I feel the same way, she admitted. But I'm scared. This whole world, the scrutiny, the pressure. What if I can't handle it? Then we'll figure it out together. He cupped her face in his hands. I'm not asking you to change or to fit into some mold. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are and trust that that's enough. Tears spilled down Madison's cheeks. Ethan kissed them away, gentle and reverent, and she felt her walls crumbling. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I didn't want to, but I do. I love you too, he breathed. So damn much. They held each other as the city lights flickered outside. Two people from different worlds, choosing to build a new one together. After that night, things shifted again. Madison stopped reading the press coverage. She focused on her work, landing 3 major clients through connections Ethan had made, but sealing the deals through her own talent and skill. The critics started to quiet as her success spoke for itself. Ethan made changes too. He started leaving work earlier to spend time with her. He turned down weekend business trips, prioritizing their relationship over constant expansion. His board grumbled, but his company didn't suffer. If anything, the stability of his personal life seemed to make him sharper, more focused. 3 months after the gala, Ethan surprised her with a weekend trip. No destination, just pack a bag and trust me. They flew private because of course they did, to a small coastal town in Maine. Ethan had rented a cottage right on the water, private and perfect. Why here? Madison asked as they walked along the rocky beach hand in hand. Because I wanted to take you somewhere that was just ours, he explained. No press, no business partners, no expectations, just us. They spent the weekend cooking together, exploring tide pools, making love as the sound of waves crashed outside. It was simple and perfect, and Madison felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't since this all began. On their last night, sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ethan turned to her. Move in with me. Madison's heart stuttered. What? My penthouse is too big for one person anyway, he continued. And I hate waking up without you. I hate going to sleep in an empty bed knowing you're across the city. So move in with me. Make it a home instead of just a place I sleep. Madison stared at him, her mind racing. It was fast, too fast by conventional standards, but nothing about their relationship had been conventional. And when she imagined waking up next to him every morning, cooking breakfast in that beautiful kitchen, falling asleep in his arms every night, her heart screamed, yes. Okay, she said, a smile breaking across her face. Yes, I'll move in with you. Ethan's answering grin was pure joy. He pulled her into his lap and kissed her deeply, the sunset surrounding them in golden light. Really? He murmured against her lips. You're sure? I'm terrified, Madison admitted. But I'm sure. Good, because I'm not letting you change your mind. They flew back to New York the next day, and by the end of the week, Madison had packed up her studio apartment. It was bittersweet, leaving the place that had been her home since moving to the city. But when Ethan helped her carry boxes into the penthouse, introducing each item to its new spot, it felt right. Within a month, the penthouse had transformed. Madison's books filled the shelves. Her photos joined his on the walls. Her coffee maker sat next to his espresso machine in the kitchen. It wasn't his place anymore, or hers. It was theirs. The press had a field day with the news, but Madison found she didn't care. Let them speculate. She knew the truth. She'd found someone who loved her, not despite her differences from his world, but because of them. Someone who challenged her, supported her, believed in her even when she doubted herself. One evening, about a month after she'd moved in, Madison found Ethan on the couch with his laptop, frowning at the screen. "What's wrong?" she asked, settling next to him. He closed the laptop and pulled her against his side. "Just work stuff. Board's pushing for an expansion I'm not sure about. Talk to me. What's the concern?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, it would mean a lot more travel, a lot of time away from home, from you, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. Madison's chest warmed. She understood now how much he'd changed his priorities for her, how much he'd sacrificed without ever making her feel guilty about it. "What if I came with you?" she suggested. "I can work remotely. We could turn business trips into adventures." His eyes lit up. "You'd do that?" "I'd do a lot of things for you, Ethan Kingsley." She kissed him softly. "Because I love you. And I want to be part of every piece of your life, even the complicated parts. Especially the complicated parts." "God, I love you," he breathed, crushing her against him. Madison laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "So is that a yes to my travel proposal?" Absolutely. They started planning that night, mapping out potential trips, talking about the future with an excitement that made Madison's heart soar. 3 months ago, she'd been a struggling consultant pretending to be the girlfriend of a billionaire. Now she was building a real life with the man she loved, combining their worlds into something entirely new. It wasn't perfect. They still fought about work-life balance and her stubborn independence and his occasional overprotectiveness. But they always came back to each other, always chose to work through the hard parts instead of running away. And that, Madison realized, was what love really meant. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts or picture-perfect moments, but choosing each other over and over again, even when it wasn't easy. Especially when it wasn't easy. 6 months after moving in, together, Madison's business had tripled in size. She'd hired 2 assistants and was fielding more clients than she could handle. Ethan's company had expanded into 3 new markets, and he'd started delegating more, trusting his team so he could maintain the life balance they'd worked so hard to create. They'd fallen into a comfortable rhythm, morning coffee together before heading to their respective offices, lunch dates when their schedules aligned, evenings spent cooking dinner side by side, talking about their days, weekends exploring the city or hiding away in their penthouse, shutting out the world. But there was still one piece missing, one conversation they'd been dancing around: Madison's family. She'd told them about Ethan, of course. Her mother called weekly, fishing for details with increasingly obvious questions. Her father had been more reserved, protective of his daughter in that way fathers are. But she hadn't brought Ethan home to meet them yet, kept finding excuses to delay. Ethan never pushed, but she could see the question in his eyes whenever her phone rang, and she stepped away to talk privately. One Sunday morning, Madison was making pancakes when Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What's on your mind?" he asked quietly. "You've been distracted all week." Madison flipped a pancake, buying time. "It's nothing. Just work stuff." "Madison," his tone was gentle but firm. "Talk to me." She sighed, turning in his arms to face him. "My mom called yesterday. She wants us to come for Thanksgiving. Meet the family officially." "Okay," Ethan said slowly. "And that's a problem because?" "Because my family isn't," Madison gestured vaguely. We're not wealthy. My dad's a high school teacher. My mom's a nurse. We had Christmas on a budget and hand-me-down clothes. They're going to take one look at you and think I'm—" She trailed off, suddenly embarrassed. "Think you're what? That you're way out of my league. That this is all temporary. That I'm going to get my heart broken when you realize how different our backgrounds are." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Do you honestly think I care about any of that?" "Madison, I fell in love with you, not your bank account. If anything, the fact that you built your success from nothing makes you more impressive, not less. But they're going to judge. They're your parents. They're supposed to protect you." He smiled faintly. "I'd be worried if they didn't give me some degree of hell. But I can handle it. The question is, are you ready for me to meet them?" Madison searched his face, looking for any sign of hesitation or doubt. She found only certainty, love, patience. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, let's do Thanksgiving in Ohio." Ethan's smile was brilliant. He kissed her softly. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I won't let you down." The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were a whirlwind of preparation and nerves. Madison coached Ethan on her family dynamics, her father's love of old westerns, her mother's obsession with proper table manners, her younger brother's competitive streak when it came to sports trivia. Ethan absorbed it all, asking questions, taking mental notes. He even went shopping for hostess gifts, rejecting Madison's suggestions of expensive wine or designer items in favor of something more personal. A cookbook he'd researched specifically for her mother's interests, a leather-bound collection of classic westerns for her father. They flew commercial at Madison's insistence, taking her hand as they landed in Columbus. Her parents picked them up from the airport, her mother's hug warm and familiar, her father's handshake with Ethan assessing. The drive to her childhood home was filled with her mother's cheerful chatter about the neighborhood and meal preparations. Madison watched Ethan from the corner of her eye, but he seemed completely relaxed, asking questions and engaging naturally. The house was exactly as Madison remembered. Small but cozy, with family photos covering every surface and the scent of her mother's famous pumpkin pie filling the air. "Madison, show Ethan to the guest room," her mother instructed. "Dinner's in an hour." Guest room, singular. Madison's cheeks heated. "Mom, we're adults," her mother interrupted with a knowing look. "But you're under my roof, so guest room." Ethan coughed to cover a laugh, earning him a sharp look from Madison. Upstairs, she showed him the small bedroom with its floral wallpaper and dated furniture. "Sorry," she muttered. "My mom's old-fashioned." "It's charming," Ethan said genuinely. "This is where you grew up?" "Next door." She pointed through the wall. "That's my old room. Her brother's using it now. Can I see it?" Madison hesitated, then led him to the adjacent room. It had been redecorated, her brother's sports posters replacing her old artwork, but the bones were the same. Ethan studied everything: the window seat where she used to read, the small desk where she'd done homework, the photos still tucked in the mirror frame. "This explains a lot about you," he said softly. "What do you mean?" "You're driven because you saw your parents work hard for everything. You're independent because you learned early that you had to be. And you're guarded because—" He traced a photo of teenage Madison with her arms crossed, looking defiant, "because you always felt like you had something to prove." Madison's throat tightened. He saw her, truly saw her, in a way no one ever had. Downstairs, dinner was a surprisingly relaxed affair. Her mother had made all of Madison's favorites, and the conversation flowed easily. Ethan charmed her mother with compliments about the food and genuine interest in her nursing stories. He held his own with her father's subtle interrogation about his business practices and long-term plans. And when her brother tried to stump him with obscure football statistics, Ethan not only kept up, but impressed them both with his knowledge. By dessert, Even her father was smiling, the tension in his shoulders relaxing. After the meal, Madison's father pulled Ethan aside, while her mother enlisted Madison's help with dishes. In the kitchen, her mother grabbed her hand, squeezing tight. "He's wonderful, sweetheart. I can see why you love him." Tears pricked Madison's eyes. "You think so? I think he looks at you like you're the most important person in his world." Her mother's smile was knowing. "And that's all I've ever wanted for you." Later that night, Madison snuck into the guest room to find Ethan already in bed, reading. She closed the door softly behind her. "We're going to get caught," Ethan whispered, but he lifted the covers in invitation. Madison slipped in beside him, immediately wrapped in his warmth. "Worth the risk. How did it go with my dad?" "He gave me the talk." Ethan's voice was amused. "The 'if you hurt my daughter' speech. And I told him the truth, that hurting you would be like hurting myself, that I plan to spend the rest of my life making you happy." Madison's heart stuttered. "Ethan, are you?" He kissed her before she could finish the question. "Not yet. But soon, when the time is right." She nodded, emotion clogging her throat, and snuggled closer. They fell asleep tangled together, and if her mother noticed Madison sneaking back to her own room at dawn, she graciously said nothing. The rest of the weekend was perfect. Ethan fit seamlessly into her family, helping her father clean gutters, playing video games with her brother, sitting with her mother, and looking through old photo albums that made Madison want to die from embarrassment. By the time they left, her family had officially adopted him. Madison's mother pulled her aside at the airport. "Don't let this one go," she said seriously. "Men like that, who love you for who you are rare." "I won't," Madison promised. On the flight back to New York, Ethan held her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "Thank you for bringing me home with you," he said quietly. "Thank you for making them love you," Madison replied. "It's easy when I'm already in love with their daughter." Madison felt the last of her fears dissolve. They'd faced down press scrutiny, societal judgment, and family expectations, and they'd come through stronger, more certain, more committed. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. A week after Thanksgiving, Ethan surprised her with a weekend trip upstate to a small cabin he'd rented. They spent Saturday hiking through snow-dusted forests, and Saturday night curled by the fireplace with hot chocolate and old movies. On Sunday morning, Madison woke to find Ethan already up, standing by the window watching the sunrise. She padded over in his t-shirt and her sleep pants, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Beautiful," she murmured. "Not as beautiful as you." He turned in her arms, and Madison realized he was nervous. Ethan Kingsley nervous. "What's wrong?" she asked, suddenly concerned. "Nothing's wrong." He took a breath. "Everything's right. That's the problem." Madison frowned, confused, and then Ethan was dropping to one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Madison Cole," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "6 months ago, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You challenged me, frustrated me, made me laugh, made me feel. You made me want to be better, to do better. You made me believe in love again." He pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning but simple diamond ring. Nothing ostentatious, just elegant and perfect. "I know we haven't been together long by conventional standards. But when you know, you know. And I know that I want to spend the rest of my life waking up next to you, building dreams with you, growing old with you. So, Madison Cole, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Madison's face. She wanted to say yes immediately, but her practical side, the one that had protected her for so long, whispered caution. "Ethan, are you sure?" "I'm sure," he said firmly. I've never been more sure of anything. But I need you to be sure too. So take your time. Think about it. No pressure." Madison laughed through her tears. "You're on your knee proposing, and there's no pressure." He grinned. "Okay, maybe a little pressure." She looked at this man who'd changed her entire world, who'd proven again and again that he loved her for exactly who she was, who'd met her family and charmed them effortlessly, who made her feel safe and challenged and cherished all at once. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, absolutely, yes." Ethan's face transformed with joy. He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. When he finally set her down, he kissed her deeply, pouring everything he felt into the contact. "We're engaged," Madison whispered against his lips, testing the words. "We're engaged," he confirmed. "How does it feel?" "Like the beginning of everything," she replied. And for the first time in her life, Madison wasn't afraid of what came next, because whatever it was, they'd face it together. The press had a field day with the engagement announcement. Photos of Madison's ring dominated society pages. Speculation about the wedding ran rampant. But Madison found she didn't care about any of it. She was too busy being happy. They set a wedding date for the following spring, giving them time to plan something that felt authentic to both of them. Not too big, not too small. Elegant but warm, a celebration of their love and the community they'd built together. And as Madison sat in their penthouse one evening, watching Ethan work at his laptop while she sketched out wedding ideas, she realized something profound. She'd come to New York chasing success, and she'd found it. But she'd also found something infinitely more valuable. She'd found home, not a place, but a person. Someone who saw every part of her, the ambitious consultant, the guarded woman protecting her heart, the daughter from Ohio who never quite felt good enough and loved all of it. Yes, she thought, twirling the ring on her finger. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10,